Hello, everyone. Good morning. Today, we're going to be continuing our unit on the transatlantic slave trade by looking at one of the most successful yet little known African Americans in America in the 18th century. His name was Venture Smith, and he is something of a local legend who lived right here in Connecticut and New England for most of his adult life. His story is a prime example of how people of color could gain their freedom from slavery and be successful citizens in both the American colonies and the United States well before emancipation. Venture Smith was born Brotier Furrow in what is today Guinea on the West African coast around 1729. He was the son of the local Prince of Dukandara. When he was about 10 years old, though, his nation found itself at war with another larger nation in Africa. A foreign army invaded his homeland, and Brotier eventually found himself as a captive of the invading army. After watching his home destroyed and his father tortured, he was marched to the coast, where in 1739 a slave ship from Rhode Island bought Brotier and 260 other captives from local slave traders in Ghana. It was here that Brotier gained his name Venture, reportedly being named so by his new white owner, Robinson Mumford, who bought him for 4 gallons of rum and a piece of calico, which was a heavy woven textile, out of his own venture. This brought Venture to the dreaded Middle Passage, which was, as we have learned, the name given to the deadly journey slaves took from Africa to the Americas. During Venture's passage, an outbreak of smallpox killed 60 of his fellow captives. Conditions on the ship were dark, dirty, and inescapable, but Venture and his fellow captives managed to survive the journey. At the time, the vast majority of slaves imported from Africa were sent to sugar plantations in the Caribbean and South America, but Venture and 3 others were taken to Rhode Island and the American colonies instead. Once in America, he was enslaved by the Mumfords, working in the household. He endured more arduous tasks and severe punishments as he got older, but he was reportedly one of the biggest men in the region, standing well over 6 feet tall and weighing 230 pounds, making him exceptionally talented at chopping wood, fishing, and gardening in order to make his own income. Venture first attempted to escape enslavement in 1754, but had to return to his enslaver when one of his co-conspirators, an Irish indentured servant, attempted to steal from Venture and his fellow escapees. During this time, he also married an enslaved woman named Meg and had several children. He was enslaved to multiple different people in Rhode Island and Connecticut, but eventually he was owned by Colonel Oliver Smith, who agreed to let Venture buy his own freedom. Venture worked hard for many years to earn enough to purchase his freedom, and finally, in 1765, Smith purchased his freedom for 71 pounds and 2 shillings, a notably exorbitant price in those days, showing his dedication and hard work, as well as his knack for business and investment. He took the last name Smith after his last enslaver. Once free, Venture set about purchasing his wife and children so that they could also be free. By the 1770s, he was able to purchase his entire family out of slavery, something that was extremely rare for a black man to accomplish at the time. He also purchased several other slaves out of slavery to gain their freedom. In 1775, Smith bought a farm in Haddam, Connecticut. By 1778, he had expanded the initial 10 acres to form a farm of at least 130 acres. Additionally, he made his living by fishing, whaling, farming his land, and trading in the Long Island Basin. He lived the remainder of his life at Haddam Neck, dying in 1805, very wealthy. Towards the end of his life, he wrote an autobiography describing his life and unique experiences, called A Narrative of the Life and Adventures of Venture, a native of Africa. If you want to learn more about this Connecticut legend, check out his work. In conclusion, Smith's dramatic account is a powerful reminder of colonial Connecticut's diversity, shaped by networks of migration and trade that extended not just to England, but also the West Indies and West Africa. His story is a reminder that alongside the desperate slavery and discrimination African Americans faced, there were a few who rose above and were able to secure their own freedom for themselves and their families. So that's the story of Venture Smith. And so Venture Smith fits well into our lesson today about slave resistance and what enslaved people could do to make their lives better and to withstand the hardships they were going through. Venture Smith is one of the most successful stories, but today we're going to look at several different ways and methods and people who resisted slavery and the hardships they had to go through. So this was a good introduction to that, so let's get into the next part of our lesson.